We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud.
Legal team, as you've been hearing this morning, are preparing for all-out war, beginning with a slew of new lawsuits this week, beginning with one in Pennsylvania tomorrow, along with what our next guest says is evidence of voter fraud. Sidney Powell is General Michael Flynn's attorney. She is fighting on the front lines of this battle as part of the president's legal team. Sidney, good morning to you. Thank you for being here. Can you walk us through what has taken place here as you see it?
Yes, there has been a massive and coordinated effort to steal this election from we, the people of the United States of America, to delegitimize and destroy votes for Donald Trump, to manufacture votes for Joe Biden. They have done it in every way imaginable, from having dead people vote in massive numbers to absolutely fraudulently creating ballots that exist only voting for Biden. We've identified at least 450,000 ballots in the key states that miraculously only have a mark for Joe Biden on them and no other candidate. If you look at Florida, where things were done right, you can see that that's how the rest of the country should have gone. But they also used an algorithm to calculate the votes they would need to flip, and they used the computers to flip those votes from Trump to Biden, and from other Republican candidates to their competitors also. I think Doug Collins had the race stolen from him. I think John James had his race stolen from him. It wasn't just President Trump. There were many people affected by this. We have got to fight tooth and nail in federal court to expose this abject fraud and the conspiracy behind it, and get a recount and audits in every place it's needed, which is, frankly, most of the country.
So there are recounts going on right now. We know that in Georgia, you have a list of numbers of ballots with only Joe Biden on the ticket. You say it's 98,000 ballots in Pennsylvania, 80 to 90,000 in Georgia, another 42,000 in Arizona, 69 to 115,000 in Michigan, and 62,000 in Wisconsin. Sidney, if this is true, this appears systemic. Where is the Department of Justice? Where is the AG Bill Barr? If this is so obvious, then why aren't we seeing massive government investigations?
I don't know. We definitely should be. I mean, we're getting reports of all kinds of fraud. We've got getting an affidavit from a postal worker now who talks about having been ordered to backdate ballots. No ballots received after the polls closed on voting day should even be counted. We've got multiple states that didn't even follow the rules of their own legislature. That's a federal constitutional issue. There are at least 3 major federal issues here that will require the Supreme Court to resolve this case. And when the votes are really audited and the real votes are counted, Trump will win. He is the president, and he is in charge of this country.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
There has been a terrible lack of transparency in the Philadelphia vote counting process. And we have a rogue state Supreme Court that unilaterally decided to violate the U.S. Constitution and rewrite election law to allow ballots without a postmark to be counted days after the election.
Well,
I doubt very much
the Supreme Court ratified that, didn't they?
No, they did not. No, George, they did not ratify that. They said by a 4-4 decision, they would not impose an injunction at that time, leaving the door open for addressing that in a subsequent case. I think that's likely to happen. And so, for instance, if it turns out that it is that category of ballots that create the margin of victory for Vice President Biden, I have no idea whether that's the case or not, but that's the kind of thing that would have to be litigated. So I think we've got a long way to go. We've got to finish the counting, and all legal ballots absolutely have to be counted, and that takes as long as it takes. There's probably going to be a valid, legitimate recount, and then there will be legitimate litigation. I just think that's the way it's going to go, and people need to be patient. We need to let this process play out.
It was the president who said we should stop the counting, but just a couple of points there. Number one, the ballots that have come in so far do not include anything that was received after November 3rd, right now, at least in the current.
Hold on, George. I'm not aware that that's the case, and I don't know how we could know that in Philadelphia, since observers have not been given the opportunity to get close enough to observe.
Well, the Supreme Court ordered those observers to come in. And in fact, we've all been watching the count on television.
George.
I was talking to the Lieutenant Governor this morning, and he said there have not been any widespread irregularities, no widespread evidence of fraud in Pennsylvania at all.
George, I have acknowledged that. I'm not aware of any widespread or any systemic fraud or anything of the sort. However, nobody can say with confidence that the ballots that are supposed to be segregated in Philadelphia are in fact being properly segregated, because even this morning I spoke with the Republican who's responsible for overseeing that process, and he continues to be denied access to the point where you can actually see what's happening. Yeah, they're in the room. The room is the size of a small town, and he can't get close enough to see what's actually going on. So all I'm saying is there are some unnecessary problems along the way. We're going to have to get this resolved.
We're hearing lots of allegations of a dead person voted. We heard a report from one county in Michigan where the election software mistakenly counted 6,000 votes that were cast for Donald Trump. It switched them to Joe Biden. Now, they apparently caught that, but that same software is used in 47 counties throughout Michigan. That needs to be examined to determine that there's not a problem counting the votes. And the legal process is how you resolve those questions. You know, one of the frustrating things, just as an American watching this, is you hear all these allegations of what's going on, and it's hard to know what the facts are. It's hard to know what the truth is. Well, we have a process for ascertaining the truth, which is that you can go and present evidence and test it in a court of law, and then those appeals will go up both through the state appellate system and the federal appellate system, and this case could very easily end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. You know, you mentioned Bush versus Gore, which I was part of representing then Governor George W. Bush. In the course of 36 days, we had multiple cases throughout the state of Florida. It went twice to the Florida Supreme Court. It went twice to the U.S. Supreme Court. It took 36 days to resolve, and we got an answer. I would expect a similar process to play out here, despite the media trying to tell everyone, give up, go home, we know who we want to win. That's not how it works. We need to follow the law, and that means allowing the legal process to play out.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.